Claude Co-Work completely changed how we are interacting with AI. And the reason is that right now we not only have an AI that can access to your file and connect to your tools, but it can also handle everyday tasks that you'd normally do manually. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how you can get started with Co-Work. And we're going to do a couple of live examples so that by the end of it, you would know how to use it effectively. And if you don't know who I am, I'm Joe. I'm an ex-senior manager in big tech, and I scaled my own AI agency to 6 figures, helping more than 50 businesses transition to AI. So with that being said, get comfortable and let's dive straight in. All right, so if you followed the news recently, you might have heard about Claude Code, and Claude Co-Work, and you might be overwhelmed if you're new to the AI space. So the first thing that I want to do is just to clarify what are the 3 pillars that the Claude ecosystem has. So when we're talking about Claude Code, and Claude Co-Work, we're just talking about 3 different things, right, that we're going to see in a little bit more details right now. However, I just want you to know for now that these are 3 different things as of the release of the video, right? Because now every day there is something new. But these are the 3 pillars that right now we have inside the Claude ecosystem. Now, what is Claude? Claude is basically the equivalent of ChatGPT, right? So in here, we are referring to a chatbot. And you can think about it like hiring a smart colleague or talking to a smart colleague. And this model is generally better when it's a matter of brainstorming or asking general questions like, hey, how does this work? Or how does that work, you know? So the usual way that we use these models, we send a picture, we ask clarification questions, and so on. So now that we have a smart colleague, like with this colleague, we can only chat, right? But we can't really build things. So that is when Claude Code comes into play. And here it's the equivalent of you hiring a software engineer, to be clear. So with this in mind, meaning that we are hiring a software developer, the best use cases for Claude Code is to build software or building agentic workflow, which basically are the, let's call it, new way of automating things with AI. So we're moving away from make.com and A10, and we're now using agentic workflow. If you're new to this, I did a 3 hours tutorial somewhere up here. I will leave it so that you can go and check it out for yourself if you're interested. However, this basically means that we are building production-ready things, right? So now we mentioned that first it's a chat, and here we're building something to build code, right? So where does Co-Work come into play? Co-Work is like hiring a personal assistant. And this is actually best for the daily tasks and your productivity. So just like we will do the example later on, let's imagine that you need to sort the things in your desktop. You're not going to ask Claude or Claude Code to do that because Claude doesn't have access because it's a chatbot and so on. But Claude Co-Work, you will see that with a specific function, we'll be able to enter your desktop and rearrange the files or support you in many tasks, right? So this is why when we talk about Co-Work, we're talking about a personal assistant. Now, before seeing it live, let's see the 3 pillars where we can actually use Co-Work. So the first use case is that we're going to use Claude Co-Work in order to browse the web. So what you can do is actually you can do or complete tasks that require web access. So we will see how literally Co-Work will take over your browser and will perform some tasks for you. Then we're going to use an MCP connection, which basically means, long story short, that we have the possibility of connecting Co-Work with more than one app through this MCP, which is nothing more than, let's think about it like a universal USB. So it basically allows Co-Work to be connected with your Slack, your Gmail, your Firefly, and so on, right? So basically, we're just giving Co-Work the possibility of using external apps, and we are going to plug them in. And then at the end, we're also going to see what skills are in this specific scenario, which basically means simply to enhance the capability that Co-Work already has. And we're just going to give it more instruction in order for it to be able to perform more tasks the way we would expect. So with that being said, we're now just going to move away from the slides and we're going to go to the desktop and let's start seeing what Co-Work can actually do. All right, let me start immediately with a disclaimer. In order to use Co-Work, you're going to have at least the Pro plan, which is a plan that I would recommend if you are playing around with Claude Code, or Co-Work, right? You're not using it professionally. But if you're going to be serious about building it and etc., I would highly recommend you to go with the Max plan, which is the one that I'm currently using. in the free plan, if you see right here you have all of the specs that you have available. However, both Claude Code and Co-Work are not supported. With that being said, let's start understanding first how we can install Claude, and we're going to start with the browse version. So you're going to have to go in here, so claude.com/Chrome, and here you're going to be able to add it to Chrome. So this is basically a plugin to your Chrome. You're going to press here, add to Chrome, add extension, and this is just going to add it right here. We're going to authorize, and once that is authorized, you can pin it so it's actually on top of it, and you have it right here. As of the moment of the recording of the video, this is still in beta features. Most likely when you will watch it, it may not be. However, for now, this is what we're dealing with. And once you manage to authorize it, then in here, you're going to have your plugin. And then if you press it, you're going to be able to access the Claude Co-Work extension. Now, what do we see in this interface? We see that on the top left-hand corner, we have a model. By the way, as of the recording of the model, Opus 4.6 is the latest, but these models change. So what I would suggest is don't focus on the name of the model, but focus on the wording that is just here right below. And Opus 4.6 right now is the most capable for complex work. So we can expect a model that takes longer, right, to reason. So probably for coding and all of that stuff. This is for fastest and for quick answers, and Sonnet 4.5, sorry, for everyday tasks. Now, let's go with Haiku, and I want to do something along the way of, hey, I'm in the content creation space, and I would like you to go on Google and understand what is the most appropriate cloud model that I can use in order to create transcripts for my YouTube video. Now, this is, of course, not a task that I would normally go and ask Co-Work, but what I want to show you is how the Co-Work will take over the browser and browse for me. So what I'm going to do also here is we're going to have these two toggles right here. One is ask before acting, and one is act without asking. Basically here, the 80-20 is that if we have access to third-party tools, we just want to ensure that we're always asking before acting, meaning that we want to overview the tasks. However, if we're not running anything special, then or that requires our attention, it's always good to delegate, right? So in this scenario, because I am just browsing stuff, I will just act without asking and then let Co-Work do the job for me. So what you will see right here, let me see if I spelled properly. Here I wrote Cloud instead of Claude. So let me just fix it real quick, and there you go. And now it will still resume where it left and take over, right? And as you can see, like right now, I'm not touching anything. The model is just doing everything by its own. Again, the task is not super relevant to the Co-Work thing, but I just wanted to show you how this is gonna live, just do it in front of us, and how it can, take over the browser and browse for us. Because then we're going to use it for a bit more complicated things, let's say. Let's now try something a little bit more advanced, moving to Claude Co-Work for desktop. All right, and once you have downloaded it, then this is going to be your app, and this is for desktop. And right here at the top, and now I will put it full screen again, but you can see that you have chat, you have Co-Work, and you have code. As mentioned, this is what we discussed in the beginning. Chat is simply the model. Code is where you can actually, run the software and build everything that you want, and specifically full stack app or agentic workflows. And Co-Work is the intent of the video, and this is what we're going to be using now. And right now, Claude is going under maintenance, so I'll come back to this. All right, we are officially back and restored. So now we are inside Co-Work. So let's start doing something a little bit more advanced. And we mentioned that Co-Work can actually go inside your desktop and reorganize files or control overall your desktop so that it could automate tasks that normally you do manually. So in this part right here, so at the very bottom, we have a folder which is named worked in folder. And basically this means that we have the opportunity of actually telling Claude Co-Work that it should go inside a specific folder right here, and then it can act upon it, right? So we're gonna allow, always allow, and etc. So now what is in that folder? We're gonna make an example which is business useful. And inside that folder, I created a series of unnamed or named improperly invoices plus SOPs that are just scattered. And what you'd normally do is you would lose hours in order to reorganize the files and etc. While now, what we can do is simply we can prompt Claude Co-Work to support us in these tasks and to do it for us. So, hey, I give you access to the demo files folder, and what you'd find inside is a series of invoices and a series of SOPs. They're named randomly and they don't really make sense. So I would like you to help me reorganize the overall folder, creating a sort of various subfolders where you store each invoice and you organize it per month. And then eventually you rename the SOPs according to what they are all about, right? So now, before we press enter, let me show you real quick the folder. So this is the input folder. So as you can see, random stuff, PDFs, this is invoices for April. And if I go again in here, I will have random SOPs, right? So standard operating procedure, equipment maintenance schedule, and SOP purpose, whatever, right? We have quite a lot of stuff. So what we can do now is press let's go. And what Claude Co-Work is going to do is it's just going to reorganize it for us. Now, in here at the top right-hand corner, we have the progress bar, let's call it. And so basically here, we're going to be able to see live what is the progress that Claude Co-Work is doing. And this is one of the nicest features of Co-Work that you will find also inside Claude Code, where basically it will show you what the LLM or what the system is doing so that you can first off understand how these things are working and then keep up with it. Cool. Now what's going to do is it's just going to review every single folder. So it's just going to scrape through them and then every single file inside that folder. And once done, it will just reorganize the whole workspace for us. All right, we can see quickly that the system is updating. So we have that in the progress bar, something has been ticked. So it said that it created the folder structure, right? And the substructure, and then we moved and rename invoices to monthly folders. Now let's go and check live if this is true. So, okay, we see that now two things appeared. We have the various folder here, and we have the various folder over here. Fantastic. And you can see that it actually renamed all of the SOP files that we have inside. Let's wait for this to finish. All right, so it finished. So let's go and check. We have SOPs, we have invoices, perfect. Let's go and open a couple just to see. And let's maybe open this one. So May folder, May invoice, and perfect. The date of the invoice is May. Now, if we simply wanted to have them for due date, we could just say, hey, please reorganize them according to the due date. So the other thing that we can do right here, always inside Claude Co-Work, is to press at the bottom left right here and go into setting. Because right now we saw what Claude Co-Work can do with our desktop, but we know, because we discussed it before, that the other thing is through MCP, or through connectors, which basically means that we allow Claude Co-Work to connect with the other apps. So if I were to connect with either of those, so like Gmail, I would simply go press continue, and then I would simply go through the authentication process, right? So it would just tell me continue, it would allow me to log in, and so on and so forth. So I'm not going to do it just to spare some time. But if this were not enough, then I could press the browse connectors. You could look up for anything and you could connect it, right? So right here. Let's now imagine that your third-party app or software is not in the browse connectors. So the other thing that you can do is you can press developer and add and edit config. So this is nothing more than a little JSON file, which gives the ability to Claude Co-Work to connect to third-party services. So how are we going to do it? We're just going to press it right here. And then this file would open, which is basically the JSON file that we were discussing before. So what we now need is simply to check if the third-party app that we want to connect has an MCP server. And then we're just going to copy the same type of format from the app to this JSON file right here. We're going to save it and we're going to be connected. Let's make a live example. So let's go back to Google. And the way that we are going to find the MCP server connection is by saying like server name MCP server, right? So in our example, let's connect it. I don't know, I saw Miro before. So we have Miro, connect your Canva to any AI tool. We're going to press configure MCP. And now reading here, I can see that connecting to Miro's MCP. And if I scroll down, there you go. I can simply copy this, then go back to my file, paste it. And then here I have enabled the Claude MCP so Claude Co-Work to actually access this MCP, and this will give Claude Co-Work the ability to go inside, in this example, Miro.com. All right, now to make another example, I have connected my Gmail, so I just went through the authentication process, right? And then I will go on a new task, because every conversation is basically a task, and I will ask something along the way of, hey, can you please go to my Gmail account and let me know what is the latest email that I received and who sent it to me. So basically what now I'm asking Co-Work is to go inside my Gmail account, and Co-Work will be able to access that Gmail account just because here we have enabled the connector. And as you can see right here on the right-hand side, Co-Work actually recognized that there is that connection happening. And then it will go through the usual process that we described before. So it will show us the progress and then it will proceed. Now, because of the fact that we didn't say to proceed without permission, now what Claude is going to do is it will keep on asking us for the permission before doing any task. Your most recent email is a security thing just because I logged in, right? But the second most recent email, which is so interesting because it understood that the first result was not enough, it's actually coming from another dummy email that I have. And the subject is trial for Claude Co-Work. Cool. So this means that here we managed to access our Gmail. And as you can see, between like reorganizing our desktop and doing tasks or reviewing emails and etc., we could literally save hours and hours of work just simply by prompting to CloudWork whatever it is that we want to do. So as mentioned, the last thing that I want to show you is skills. And what are skills and why are these actually important? Imagine you are a chef, right? And you need to cook something for your friends. And maybe you don't exactly know the perfect recipe, but then someone hands you the recipe and you can read it and then you can perform an amazing job. So this is the same that Co-Work or in general, even Claude Code, they do with skills. So they are just an enhancement that teaches them something so that they can perform the task at their very best without just guessing what it is that we want. So imagine we were to do a presentation. Instead of saying, hey, run this presentation and create something from scratch, the skill would tell, okay, the title has to be this big, then the color needs to be this color, then white background, then font I want, I don't know, Inter or Gotham, and so on and so forth, right? So this is what a skill is simply an enhancement of a tool, and it's nothing more than, as mentioned, instruction. So it's in natural language. Now, let's make something with as an example skill, right? So we can have brand guidelines, canvas design, and all you have to do right here is simply to toggle these on and off. So let's try to use these brand guidelines and create something with it, right? So let's go on a new task and say something along the way of, hey, I would like you to create a new logo for my company. My company is, I don't know, doggy.com, and the logo is a dog. And I would like you to do it using the brand guideline skills that I toggled for you. And you should give me something that has the vibe of Claude in terms of colors, fonts, and etc. So now we're just going to press let's go. And we're going to see what this is going to do. All right, so now this is done. It told me like open in anti-gravity. I don't really care. I just want to visualize, right? So let's see what it produced. So this is definitely a very Claudey dog. So yeah. That's a skill. You can see that you can understand and you could prompt it, right? And you could say, hey, you cut the .com and etc. But basically, this is what it is. One other thing that I want to tell you immediately, because this will be useful now that we talk about custom skills. As you can see, the skills in general are guidelines that someone else thought that or designed for you. So basically, what you're actually using is someone else's knowledge of what it is that they think it's the best practice to do something, right? So the one in this case that it's this one is just a practice example. But what we're going to be using now, and we're going to be doing something related to content creation for LinkedIn. I use that sort of stuff a lot, mainly for businesses when they want to automate their content pipelines, or I teach people how to do it when they want to sell AI services. But what you're going to see is that unless you create your own skills that you can do inside Claude Code, right? Simply saying, hey, create a skill. With these things and this approach. But what we're going to be using now is a skill for content creation that we will find online, and we will see if the output that that skill gives us is good enough or not. And all we will need to do, in case we're not satisfied, is just to change the type of skill, right? So we're just giving the chef a different recipe, in order for him or her to produce the best approach. Cool. So where do we go for this? We just press setting. And again, we're just going to go to capabilities and we're going to go on skills. And here we need to add my own skill. So now, where is it that you can actually find skills? So online, I give you a couple. There is a cabajillions, but for me, very useful is skillhub.club. So this one right here, and or skillsmp.com. So these are phenomenal places where I find a lot. Here you have almost 200,000 skills. Here you have also 21,000 and etc. And if you scroll down here, there is plenty that you can actually use for any sort of business. We're going to press all skills. And now we're going to just go to writing and I don't know, brand voice, LinkedIn post. There you go. So you're just going to press it. And then once you're inside, you're just going to press export. You're going to have your skill.md. And these are my next LinkedIn post, by the way. And so what I'm going to be able to do now is to add, then I can do upload a skill from somewhere. And then in here, I should have my skill.md. And then in here, once I upload, I'm going to be able to use this straight away. And let's see. Hey, can you please now use the skill.md file that I uploaded, which is the one that we should be using in order to write LinkedIn post? And can you please write me a LinkedIn post about productivity? Once again, press enter. All right, so this is the post that it produced, and the most productive founders I know don't have a productivity system, no Notion, no dashboard, no 5 a.m. morning routine. And then there is the post. Now, as you can see, for example, I don't consider this to be an amazing LinkedIn post, and I don't think this would perform whatsoever. However, the skills is also giving you a warning, which is the skill recommends to also attach a visual and etc. Why did we get this output and how can we get better ones? Well, as we were mentioning, we were looking for a skill that would support us in creating or executing a task. However, as I already explained, like when we are relying on a skill created by someone else, we are also relying on someone else's taste. So again, back to the recipe example, we are just allowing someone else to tell us how we should cook a pasta, right? And if I'm Italian, I want to cook pasta a specific way. And for this very reason, I would not, maybe in this specific scenario, since I know very well LinkedIn and I help people in the AI space make money with LinkedIn, I would never go and use someone else's skills. Maybe I would create it myself. But if I were a super like novice, beginner, and etc., I would probably rely on the skill that someone else has built. So let's imagine that now we are the expert and we want to create a skill. How do we do it ourselves so that whenever we input something, we always get the output that we are expecting? So back to our Claude Code, we go back to the section where we were before. So setting, then capabilities, and eventually we could do add a skill. But in this specific example, we're going to ask Claude to do it with us. So here we should be doing, by the way, please come up with the skill yourself and make something very simple. This is just a demo, and I'm doing this as an example to explain people how we should be creating skills. So now what we are asking Claude to do is to help us generate a skill. Now I'm using this as a demo. However, a very nice starting point in order to generate skills that do make sense is to use something that you do on a daily basis, right? So I don't know, imagine like cleaning your calendar, answering the top 5 emails according to specific things, or productivity stuff, and etc. Right? So, or writing a LinkedIn post. Maybe you're very good and you can create one that will support you in avoiding every time to come up with the right structure, schemability, and etc., etc., etc. So this is the skill that it created. It's a skill called LE5, which basically it means to explain like I'm 5. So now, if I go in my folder, I can see that I have a skill.md. Now I have anti-gravity open, so I can easily show you here. And this is written according to the best practices, right? In here, I would go to the capabilities and then add. And then in here, I would do upload a skill. And now we have it here. So now, hey, I want to explain what are Claude skills. Can you do it using the LE5 skill that you have available? All right, and this is the output. You know how, and when you play with building blocks, some blocks are just regular squares, but then you get those that are special blocks, etc., etc., etc. You now know most than 99% of people, and you have clear what is the difference between Claude Code, and Claude Co-Work, and you also are able to use the power of skills. If you're a 9-to-5er that wants to start and scale his own AI agency, I left the first link down below for you, so go and check it out. And if you found this video interesting, I'm pretty sure you're gonna find building agentic workflow even better. So I'm just gonna leave my 3-hour tutorial right here.